Hey there, good people. It's your Crippled Critic, and this week I want to talk about the long-awaited sequel, Little Nightmares 2. Little Nightmares 2 is a puzzle platforming horror game developed by Tarsier Studios and published by Bandai Namco Entertainment. Like the original, Little Nightmares 2 has you play as a small child running away from a lot of danger. This time you're a little boy named Mono, exploring the new place called the Pale City. There are also monsters and giant deformed humanoids that will definitely try to kill you. You'll find a familiar face though in the form of the little girl named Six from the first game. This time around she's going to be your companion and possibly help you on your journey. Little Nightmares 2 was released on PC, Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, but I'm reviewing the PC version of the game. So I'll start with the accessibility and controls of the game. Just like in the first Little Nightmares, you'll be pressing jump, interact, and grab through most of the game. Sometimes you'll also be pressing all of them at once, or just a combination of them. Running away from enemies is the main goal, but there's also puzzles, stealth sections, and even combat. Disabled gamers with fine motor skill impairments are definitely going to have a hard time dealing with gameplay. So much of the game requires fast movement, and there's a lot of time puzzles throughout. And there's always a very small window of opportunity when it comes to enemy reaction times. Even though the game has side-scrolling elements, a large part of it is going to be outside of the 2D dimension. There you'll explore, solve puzzles, and even fight. Unfortunately, it's not always clear what dimension you're in when you move. Add on top of that enemies that can kill you instantly and a clunky cover system, things become really difficult to manage. The gameplay is just not very forgiving. Wait, this sounds familiar. Have I said this before? Even worse is that there's a lot of timed puzzles in the game, sometimes while an enemy is chasing you. During these moments, you can be pressing up to 3 or 4 buttons at a time, but every once in a while, the game lets you move your character in the foreground and background of an area, presumably to let you explore and find more hidden puzzle items. Unfortunately, I found it was very confusing trying to make very precise movements, especially on like a tightrope or a very thin pipe. Yeah, the gameplay just hasn't really improved much since the first game. In fact, it's only gotten worse. More timed puzzles and faster requirement times. I mentioned earlier they added combat in this game, and it's kind of a mixed bag. At random points in the game, Mono is given a weapon he has to use to defend himself. On the one hand, figuring out the mechanic and getting the swing down is really satisfying, especially because most of the enemies up until these points will kill you in an instant and you have no way of defending yourself, so it's really cool and satisfying to be able to do it. But on the other hand, if your timing is off just a little bit, everything crumbles and you're dead. It doesn't take much to get frustrating because you are doing this process over and over if you don't get the timing just right. One of the most difficult sections for me was during the hospital area of the game. There are these giant surgical dummies who come to life in the dark, just like in Doctor Who, a la the episode with the Weeping Angels. They're really creepy, and they're fast. Several moments in the hospital require you to use a flashlight to shine on these creatures while running and moving in different directions. It's a lot. Really fun and creepy, but it was getting to the limits of what my crippled hands could handle. Suffice it to say, disabled gamers with fine motor skill impairments are going to have a hard time playing this game. Okay, there are some improvements in accessibility for those with fine motor skill impairments. In Little Nightmares 2, you now have the ability to fully customize controls. I can't confirm that you can do this in all the console versions, but I know you can in the PC version. So this does make it easier if you don't like the placement of the grab button or the flashlight or interact. Also, there are big improvements done to the autosave function. In the first game, you couldn't always tell when the game was autosaving, and there were big chunks of time in between each one. So when you died, there was a lot of catching up. In Little Nightmares 2, thankfully, the autosave is a lot better, usually restarting you a few seconds before you died. Those with visual impairments will probably have the least trouble playing this game. Little Nightmares 2 is very dark visually, but there is a brightness slider you can change in the options menu. I didn't notice many color signifying puzzles or moments in the game, so colorblind players shouldn't worry. I do remember two different puzzles that had to do with turning on a button and an LED light. The color of the LED light near the button would tell you when it was on, but this puzzle also had an audio cue accompanying it, so it shouldn't be too hard for gamers with visual impairments to figure out the puzzle. Just like in the original, deaf players and gamers with hearing impairments are going to have the most trouble when it comes to playing Little Nightmares 2. I know I harp on this a lot when it comes to horror games, but atmosphere is key when it comes to horror, whether it be visuals or soundtrack, and Little Nightmares 2 is all about atmosphere and getting you into this unsettling world with a great soundtrack and creepy monsters. But appreciating the atmosphere is going to be the least of deaf players' problems. Thankfully, the story in the game isn't told through audible dialogue. Little Nightmares has always had a unique way of telling the main story, whether it be through context cues or things in the background of the environment. Still, this time around there are even more puzzles that require you to listen for the right audio. I can think of at least two parts of the game that you need to listen for audio. One involving a piano, and another time at the end of the game, there's a section where you are going down different hallways and you have to hear a specific song in order to know which way is the correct path. There's just no way around it. For gamers with hearing impairments, I just don't think they'll be able to get very far in the game or even really enjoy a lot of it. And it's sad because there's a lot to enjoy. The creatures in Little Nightmares really do set itself apart from other games. Those giants are terrifying, and they're going to stay with you well after you finish the game, I promise. There's a wide range of inspirations for the creatures in this game, just like in Little Nightmares 1. I remember there's a lot of European folklore influence and even Japanese influence, but you'd be surprised in Little Nightmares 2, I noticed a lot of Texas Chainsaw Massacre and even some creepypasta stories. You know the ones I'm talking about. I guess the biggest change in this sequel is the addition of the AI companion. You are supposed to protect Six, but she is way more than just a glorified escort mission. She's really capable on her own. Players will be happy to know that Six can help you solve puzzles, defeat enemies, and distract them too. You really do feel attached to her throughout the game. Personally, I felt more safe whenever Six was around, so, job well done in that regard. So there you have it. Little Nightmares 2 is a great sequel when it comes to the story and atmosphere. The enemies are really unsettling, and this game does a great job playing with different ideas like time travel and even different dimensions. Still, it's unfortunate that the developers really haven't learned from their mistakes and made the game have unforgiving mechanics and a lot of time puzzles with very little support for disabled gamers. I don't want to be all negative though. If there are disabled gamers out there, especially deaf and hard of hearing players who want to play the game or are playing the game and have trouble and need some help getting through a puzzle, just send me a comment, send me a message and I can help in any way. I've played this game a while, and I died a lot. I've been through a lot of the puzzles over and over, so I'll probably be able to help in some way. I just want to be able to let you guys experience the game in some way. So let me know if you have trouble, and I might can help. Anyways, guys, that was my review for Little Nightmares 2. What do you think? Was the combat hard for you? Do you like the main character? What about those creepy monsters? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, thank you for watching. I will see you later.